Okay. Welcome to the events calendar webinar. This is office hours. Let's explore the events calendar 6.0. So today we're going to cover all things 6.0. And for those who don't know, 6.0 was our latest feature release that we've been working on for quite some time. In the events calendar 6.0, we focused on both front and back end performance improvements. And with Events Calendar Pro 6.0, you'll find a new post type called Series, which gives you a new way to group and manage both single and recurring events, along with a duplicate event tool. We will be recording this webinar, so you'll receive a link tomorrow with a replay and some additional helpful resources. My name is Jamie. I'm the product marketing manager at the events calendar. I live in New York. And a fun fact about me is that I used to be a pastry chef in New York City. Very different career now, but we also have some other guests here. Leah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Leah. I'm one of the product owners for the events calendar, and I live in Portland, Oregon.
Hey, I'm Eddie. I'm one of the developers. I brought on about a year ago and was introduced to this project, and it's been a pleasure to work on it.
Nice. All right, so let's just dive right in. To get started, we are going to talk about migrating your events. This release was slightly different because in addition to updating the plugin, you also had to take that extra step to migrate your events in order to gain access to all the awesome new features. So once you update your plugin, you will be prompted to migrate your events right afterwards. And Leah is going to talk more about migrating.
Yeah, so the performance improvements and the new features that are in 6.0, they all were made possible and rely on a new method for storing our event data. It's totally new under the hood changes. And what that means is that we needed to build this migration tool so that all of our customers could take their existing events and transition them from the old way of storing the data to the new way of storing the data. That's what the migration is all about. And one of the things we wanted to touch on during this webinar was some of the issues that folks can run into during migration. And one of the big ones is if you run the migration preview, which is the first step, and you end up with event errors. We actually provide a report if there's any errors. And if you see a migration error, what that means is that our tool detected an event that for some reason we didn't think we could migrate properly. And this is really important. What it means is that we paused the process to make sure that we didn't migrate something incorrectly, which could result in data problems. So if you're seeing a migration error, it just means that we paused things to make sure that we can do it properly. If you run the preview and you see some errors, one of the main things to do to solve those is to just look at the event. Sorry, kitty drive by. Look at the event in question and see if there's any missing data. For example, in the date field, if it's blank, this can happen. Time field, you'll see it be blank or there's some weird gobbledygook there. You also want to check the recurring event options. So if any of those have strange blanks or weird data, all you need to do is fill those in, resave the event, and then try migration again. Oftentimes, that's all you need to do to make sure that things will work, and your migration preview and then the migration itself will both go smoothly with no errors. If you've done that and you're still seeing errors, check out our known issues page. This is on theeventscalendar.com, and this is where we'll post problems that the team is currently working on. And some of the migration errors that we're aware of right now are things that were working on right now. They're in testing to go out in the next maintenance release. So if you're seeing errors, check that page. It may be that the error that you're experiencing is something that we will have a fix for very soon, in which case we just ask that you sit tight and wait for that update to the events calendar. Another issue besides errors that a couple folks have reported to us is that either the preview or the migration itself seems to get stuck. We have a little progress bar, and people, occasionally people have said, well, it looks like it's going, but it hasn't actually migrated anything new in the last few hours or whatever. So we have some tips for that on our website in the knowledge base. We're going to post a link for that so you can use it. That has a few tips for what to do in this situation. But what's really cool is Eddie here has been working on an enhancement to the migration tool that will actually specifically help folks who have gotten stuck like this. And so that is also something that we're going to be including in our next maintenance release so that folks who have previously had issues with the migration getting stuck will have an option that will hopefully work for everyone. We have a whole bunch of other information about migration and troubleshooting tips and everything else in the knowledge base, the link that Jamie just posted. And the one thing that I want to really emphasize here is to remember, if you're having trouble migrating, nothing bad happens if you're not ready to migrate yet. There's a number of reasons you might not want to. That's totally fine. Your calendar and your events will continue to work as they did before. What migration does is bring you into this new system of data storage, and it allows you to start using some of the new features that we've built. But if you don't migrate yet, that's okay. Everything that you had before will continue to work. So if you're having trouble, just it's okay if you need to wait, and we are working on lots of stuff to make sure that everybody will be able to get there eventually.
Awesome. And if anyone has any questions about migrating, you can put them in the chat, and we'll do a Q&A at the end so we can get to your questions. And now we're going to go to Eddie, who's going to go through a few issues that you can troubleshoot from a dev perspective.
Yeah, so as I kind of mentioned, this was one of my first projects, and we've been working on it for a while. It's a big project, so I'm just going to kind of point out some of the things that we've done under the hood and some of the decisions we've made that will help any of you that are technically inclined or run into some troubleshooting issues too, so you kind of know where to look and what to expect. So one of the things that isn't always obvious when upgrading is that there's actually a step involved where we will actually do the transition of the data to the custom tables. So under the hood, we decided to create some custom tables that will help speed up and allow us to a lot more flexibility in the system. So in the preview migration steps, this gives us the flexibility to try some things and not force the upgrade. So as soon as you upgrade your plugin, the database will still be intact as it was before. So while you're doing the migration process, what will happen is we will actually do something called, for those of you that are technically inclined, we do transactions in the database, which is a really good way to test in a real world scenario without actually affecting your database, to see what's going on and what will happen when we try to migrate the data. So we have, customers from years and years and years, and they might have events that are set up in a particular way that might have issues troubleshooting or migrating, which this really helps in that case. So it's a pretty safe way to test the migration. doesn't actually do anything to your current data set. And under the hood, so to give some background, we will set up a process where the migrations will happen asynchronously. So we actually use Action Scheduler, which is a library that's maintained by Automatic and the WooCommerce team uses. So this will actually go in a kind of a slow way to migrate data so that your database isn't overloaded. Some of the issues that we commonly see are around Action Scheduler not working appropriately. There's some command line options there. It's in our troubleshooting guide as well that you can look at. That'll help speed things up, but that is what is doing the bulk of the migration behind the scenes. And then under the hood, we've added some new code models, so database models that help you interact with the new data structure. And we have some documentation out for that as well. But those will be great tools and resources for anybody that's looking to do any kind of custom views on the new system, potentially migrating to the V2 views, which is something that was also recently released. And some of the details on all of that can be found on our documentation. And of course, if you have any technical questions, I'm going to be here till the end and I can answer those. So just throw those in the chat.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we've gotten all of the troubleshooting out of the way, let's take a look at some of the awesome new features with 6.0. Specifically, let's take a look at series. So Leah is going to show you how awesome series is.
Sure. So I'm demonstrating this. This is from our series demo page, which is available to anyone to check out. And this is an example of a series page. What this shows is a group of events that I've put together that are, well, they're a series of events. The example is a kids camp. And what's really neat about this, so those of you who have been using the Events Calendar and Events Calendar Pro for a while are familiar with recurring events. Now, recurring events, it's an event that has multiple occurrences at different dates and times, but the content is always the same. It's always a clone. So it's only the dates and times that are different. What's really cool about series is that you can have events that are similar to a recurring event in that they're related. You know, people are expected to maybe attend all of them, something like that, but the content can be different. So in this example, I made a recurring event called Kids Camp at a particular venue. And it's an event that happens daily for 5 days. So that's how I set up the recurrence. But then what I did is I opened the individual days and edited them. And with the new features available in 6.0, I can make changes just to one occurrence. And because all of the events are within this series called Kids Camp, they stay associated with each other, even though I have changed the content. So in this example, I've changed, each one has a different title and a description. They also have different featured images, so that will show anywhere the featured images show. And just for this example, I've also changed the time on Friday. Say it's an early pickup from camp. And as you can see, while this started out as a recurring event with all of the content being the same, I can now edit the different events while at the same time keeping them all together in this series. So you can always link to the series. You can also, people can access the series from your main calendar views. So it's a really great way to display and share events with your site visitors and your customers. I want to show one other example. This example is a blood drive. And so, a blood drive, perhaps they're driving the van around to different venues, right? So I'm showing you this in map view so you can see all of these events are in the same series, but each one of them has a totally different date, time, and venue. They're all happening at different places. I created each of these as a single event and then added each one to this series called Blood Drive, and now they all display together. So what's really cool about series, when we first released recurring events way back in the day, one of the first feature requests we had was people saying, well, what if I only want to edit one? And the thing is they could edit one, but it would always disassociate from the recurring event. So now we, through series, allow you to maintain that association. Recurring events are still always clones. That is still true. But series is an additional way of grouping and displaying that gives you a ton of flexibility. So we're really excited about this, excited about how it's going to be useful to folks. And I really hope it will be useful for you. You can, series are, as I said, extremely flexible. They can include any combination of single events, recurring events, whatever you want, you can add them into the same series and they will all stay together on this page here, ready for you to share.
Thank you. That was really nice. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what's next for the events calendar. As far as features go, what can we expect coming up?
All right, so that is also something I'm really excited about. The changes that we made to the way that event data is stored, that change opens up a lot of new possibilities for us in terms of future features. One of the biggest ones, as I'm sure some of you know, is the ability to add tickets to recurring events. Now that we have changed the data storage system, we're going to be able to do that. We're going to finally be able to have tickets on recurring events. And I know tons of folks are looking forward to that. And now we are actually going to be able to do it and do it properly. Previously, you could sort of do it. It was awkward. It wasn't, like, honestly, it was not a good experience for our customers, for our customers' customers. But with these changes, we're going to be able to do that. And we have a whole roadmap just of recurring events and tickets related features. Jamie has just dropped a link in to an article in our knowledge base that has the full details on how things are going to work with recurring events and tickets in the future. This is going to be a huge focus for myself personally, for our team over the coming months. So I'm really excited to be rolling out some of those features. In addition, we are going to be adding more options around features. For example, a shortcode parameter that would allow you to add a list of events from a specific series to any poster page. Things like that, adding support for it in the widgets. Honestly, there's we've got a whole list of very cool things that we can do a series, and it's a matter of picking and prioritizing and figuring out which ones we want to build. I would really encourage anyone who has ideas or opinions about what you'd like to see to head over to our ideas page. There you can submit an idea for a new feature. You can also vote on ones that other folks have added. And you can see our roadmap, which goes beyond just the recurring events and tickets, and also talks about some of the other things that we are planning across all of our plugins. So definitely head over there. You can help influence what we're going to build. We want to build what our customers are looking for, what will be useful to you. Yeah, so I can't tell you how excited I am about the possibilities that this opens up and where we'll be going next.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna open up comments to questions. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm just gonna look through our chat and see some questions, and I'll put them up. And feel free to add any more questions that you have to the chat. Okay. Someone said I have version 5.14.1. How do I get version 6.0?
Yeah, so go to your WordPress site and log in. And in the dashboard, look for your updates. Usually there will be a red badge there, and it'll show that the Events Calendar 6.0 is available. If you have any of our other plugins, for example, our premium add-ons like Events Calendar Pro, you'll also see updates available for those. Make sure that you update both. They need to go together. That's really important. It's such a big change that we release new versions of almost all of our plugins. So for compatibility between the two, it's important that you do that. So yeah, again, look for the update in your WordPress dashboard.
Okay, let's see. Sue asked, are there compatibility issues with some themes?
So let's see. One part of 6.0 that we aren't really touching on in this webinar, or at least haven't, is that as part of it, we fully removed our legacy views, which we refer to in many places as V1. If you updated to 6.0 and you were still using those legacy calendar views, then as part of the update, we moved you over to the new ones, also known as V2. If you're having something related to style or theme, it's possible that V1 to V2 transition is playing a part. We have an article, we have a couple different articles in our knowledge base. If you search V1 or V2, for example, as keywords, you'll find some tips there. That's probably the main answer. Other than that, I would say that there's so many themes out there. Inevitably, there are some compatibility issues with themes. The other ones that I'm particularly aware of are currently some issues around Divi. We have been working on some fixes for those. A lot of those are going to be available in our next maintenance release. I don't have a list of those precisely, and I'm not sure they're on the node issues page at the moment, but that is one that I know of. Bottom line, if you're having an issue like that, I would encourage you to contact our support, and the team there will be able to let you know either that a fix is coming or to look into whatever's going on with your site more specifically and potentially uncover a different compatibility issue that we were not aware of.
Okay, a client has Google imports running every 15 minutes. Do those need to be disabled during migration?
So they don't need to be disabled. However, during migration itself, the migration tool will disable those temporarily. So you will, if you are looking very closely, you will see that any scheduled imports you have will be temporarily suspended during migration. Other parts of your site will also be paused. For example, ticket sales can't occur during the actual period of migration. That's all done for you. So you don't need to take any action. That will be something that will happen once migration completes. Those any scheduled imports or anything like that will just start working again.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. Please explain the rationale to switching to the iCal standard. This has a lot of extra steps to do for repeating events, since some features were shifted to the new series functionality.
Mm-hmm. Eddie, do you want to field that one since it's more technical?
Sure. I mean, there's not much I could add to it. Some of the history on the Switch was I wasn't aware of, but I would say, knowing the the process for maintaining code and integration, using something like iCal as a standard is kind of just a step in the right direction towards compatibility, because iCal's been around a long time and many systems integrate seamlessly with iCal. So, that would definitely be one of the main drivers to do it.
Yeah, I can add that one of the reasons we went with it as well was because of its maintainability. An ongoing issue that we had with recurring events previously was the relative difficulty in dealing with incoming bugs. It was the sort of thing where there was never a small bug with recurring events. It was only ever a big bug, which makes it really hard for our team to stay on top of. With the iCal standard, things are more maintainable. They're in general more stable, which makes a huge difference in terms of what kind of things our team can get done. And then for all of you, that means that the team has more time to either be fixing other issues or working on new features.
Okay. So Alex says that they used to be able to do a series that ran from Friday and Saturday at 7 and Sundays at 2, and they have to create a new event and then merge them.
Yes.
Is there any other way to do that?
So this is one of the limitations of switching to the iCal standard, is that with the iCal standard, each recurring event can only have one pattern-based recurrence rule, or what's also called an R rule. So for a situation like this, you could set up one recurring event that was weekly at 7 on Fridays and Saturdays, but you'd need to set up a second event that is weekly on Sundays at 2 o'clock. So yes, it does mean you're creating two events. What I will say, those two, they can go into the same series, which means they're all related. They're all associated together. And because we added the ability for you to duplicate an event, one of the main reasons we did that was for situations like this. So you could create that one that happens at 7 o'clock, get all your content in there, get it all exactly how you need it, save that one, duplicate it. You have all the same content. All you need to do then is go in, change the date to a Sunday, put in that recurrence rule for Sundays at 2, add it to the same series, and then you are set up. This is definitely a limitation that we decided to accept. It does change how things work for folks who have a complicated recurrence pattern like this. I hope that folks will value what it does allow us with the new series and allowing us to have different content, and that will be a worthwhile trade-off for folks.
Does the series name have to be part of the title in the edited events?
It does not. Nope. The series name could be something completely separate. You can name the events whatever you want. There doesn't have to be really any association, which again gives you a ton of wild flexibility in terms of what you want to do.
I use gravity forms to create events, but since 6.0, it doesn't work. It still makes event posts and they show up in the events list in the admin, but do not show up on the calendar until I update the event.
So this is definitely one where I would need more information. But if you're using Gravity Forms to create events, I'm guessing that is through a third-party plugin because we don't have a way to create events through Gravity Forms. My guess is that third-party plugin is not updated to work with the new data structure, or something else is going on there. So I would say the first step there would be to get in touch with the folks who make whatever plugin or tool you're using to use Gravity Forms that way. See if they can shed some light on it. You can also get in touch with our support team. Just keep in mind that if the issue is actually with a third-party plugin, there's not a lot we can do. So we might still send you back over to another plugin author.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little on that one because I have seen that once or twice before mentioned where there were scenarios where some third-party plugin. I think there was one that was some kind of, I can't remember the name of the plugin, but it was like some bulk spreadsheet editor plugin that allowed them to modify posts, which with the recent changes, we use posts, but not for all of the data. So some of the data is on it's basically aside from the post. So it will maybe look like it's partially working, but it might not fully work because it is not integrating fully in the system with all the custom table data that we have now. And again, just for context, why we did that, it really opens up a lot of abilities. It optimizes things, so now we can create hundreds of events quickly. It allows us to pivot and add more functionality to optimize different page views, because we have a lot more control over the underlying data structure. So there's a whole lot of benefits. Some of them we already have, and some we will be adding as time goes on.
Thank you. Let's see. So the blood drive example could work for shows on tour. Yes. Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. One of the use cases that we repeatedly kind of thought of as we were working on this was folks who have a play, maybe a play that is happening at different venues, maybe music that's happening at different venues, or say music that happens, it's like every Friday night, but there's a different band. All of those kinds of examples where it's like the events are similar and they're related, and yet there's different content, that is now all available. Similarly, like movie theaters that have different dates and times, they can all be associated under, say, the name of the movie.
Is Map View a pro feature?
It sure is, yes. Map View is part of Events Calendar Pro.
Are you going to reinvent the old duplicate function, aka cloning?
We have not previously had a duplicate function until 6.0. So if you had one previously, it's likely that was through a third-party plugin. That was usually previously when folks asked us how to duplicate events, we said, use one of the third-party plugins that can duplicate post types. There were a number of them out there that people used. So if you had that before 6.0, it would have been through a third-party plugin. That may or may not still work. We haven't tested them all. The one that we have now is built into Events Calendar Pro, and it does allow a duplicate cloning functionality for any kind of event.
Let's see. In the WordPress updates page, under each plugin that says something like 100% compatible with your version of WordPress, Events Calendar always says this, but Pro never does.
That's funny. Eddie, is that something that we specifically need to add? Well, before you answer that question, I can say confidently that Events Calendar Pro is 100% compatible with the most recent version of WordPress. We always test. You can also look in our knowledge base for requirements, which tells you what the lowest version of WordPress that we support is. I want to say 5.7, but don't quote me on that. Eddie, do you know why it doesn't say that specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. It's definitely something we'll have to check on. I'm not sure if there was a reason we aren't showing that message or if it's just some difficulty there. But just to add further, that we also have cross-plugin dependency checks. So if the Events Calendar is stating something and it's on a particular version, Events Calendar Pro has to be at a compatible version to work as well. So there's a couple levels of dependency checks there that, hopefully give you some comfort.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out so we can go look into it.
Okay. Will you be discussing templates in the future?
Maybe as another webinar?
Yeah, we definitely want to discuss, do a whole webinar on customizations. So templates would be included in that.
For sure.
Is series a part of Pro, only like recurring events? Yes.
Yes, it is also a premium feature.
Which 2 plugins should I update?
This was a follow-up on one of our earlier ones. It depends on which plugins you have, but if you have the events calendar and any of our other plugins, for example, Events Calendar Pro, Filter Bar, any of those would also need to be updated. The good news is that if you go to your WordPress dashboard and look for updates, everything that has an available update will be listed there. So it's different for every site, but it'll all be there under updates.
Does 6.0 work well with the Avada theme?
So I know that we tested it specifically with Avada. I also am faintly remembering, I think we recently had a bug reported with Avada. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what exactly it was. It's entirely possible it wouldn't affect your site. So I will say that, yes, within reason, being that, small incompatibilities happen. What I would recommend is if you haven't updated to 6.0 yet and you use Avada, is to set up a sandbox site and update first on the sandbox site. That way you'll be able to test the update with your theme in its very specific, your exact settings, your other plugins, everything else. So I would say, especially for a major update like this, but really with any update, it's great to do it in a sandbox site first.
If there are any known issues with Divi, should I wait to migrate my clients that I have on Divi?
Yeah, so I saw a little bit of chatter, a few different things about Divi in the chat. So right now we have some known issues with Divi that I think they were introduced in one of I forget if it was 6.0 or 6.01. But we do have some known issues with Divi. We have been working not only within our own team, but actually specifically with the Divi team to mitigate those. We have some fixes coming out in our next maintenance release, possibly. I'm not positive if that will handle everything that has been reported, but definitely a lot of the biggest ones. I will say to you the same thing I said to the person with Avada. If you can do it on a sandbox site first, that is always the way to go. But I would say as of today and our versions right now, I would say that if you have a client with Divi, I would hold off doing their live site until the next version of the events calendar comes out. If everything goes as planned, that would likely be sometime within the next week or two, so you wouldn't have long to wait. Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Has anyone noticed that recurring events being added sometimes jump to dates in 2023?
I have not noticed that. I'm not aware of a date picker issue like that that I can think of. I would say that is something, first thing I would do would be to do some conflict testing, see if there's another plugin interfering there. I would also maybe check for JavaScript errors or something like that. But what I would say is feel free, if you have access to our premium support, to put in a support ticket, and we could also help you look into that further. Sounds like some interesting issue of some kind, but we need a lot more information to dig into it.
If you don't have any current live events, do you need to migrate?
So even if you don't have any upcoming events, you still need to migrate your past events. Now, if you don't care about your past events, you could trash them all, and then you wouldn't need to migrate. But even the past events, they're using the old data system. They need to be go through the migration process so that we'd be able to display them on your site if somebody was looking at your past events. So yes, you still need to migrate. If you're getting an error, as I said, I would check out our migrating article in the knowledge base and then potentially our known issues page. It's possible that there's a relatively straightforward fix that you can do now that would correct those issues, or something that we're fixing in our upcoming maintenance release.
Good question.
Yeah. I could add there, especially for folks who are making sites for clients. If you start a brand new site and you install the events calendar at 6.0 or a later version, and there are no events, you don't have to go through migration. You're just automatically in the new fancy system. Nothing's needed there. The migration is very specifically only if you were on previous versions of the events calendar and have events that were made on those previous versions.
Okay, I'm just looking in the chat. I see a bunch of interesting suggestions for us to create some videos on creating a series and one for recurring events. I like that, and I will keep that in mind.
We do have
we have some videos.
Yeah, we have a series article. Let me I can drop the link for that one.
And then our next question is there any issue with updating to 6.0 in WordPress without having other plugins that connect to the calendar? We just use it as a training calendar.
If I understand correctly, that means updating only the events calendar and you don't have any of our premium plugins or any of our other free plugins. If that's the case, you shouldn't have any issues. It should be straightforward. It's always possible that there will be other things that come up, some of the other, the migration issues that I mentioned. But certainly the migration process does not require any of our premium plugins. So you can go ahead if you're just using TEC.
And then where can I send a screenshot of recurring events triggering a 404 error message?
I will drop in a link to our support resources. Keep in mind, if you have one of our premium licenses, you'll be able to submit a support ticket, and then our team can take a look. If you don't have one of our premium plugins or don't have a valid license for it, then you will need to post on the WordPress.org forum. That's where we provide more limited support for our premium users. So, or I'm sorry, more limited support for our free users, forgive me. So one of those two options will be the thing for you to do. Just keep in mind that if you need the premium level of support, then you do need to have that license.
One thing I would add in scenarios like this, sometimes it's simply, if you look at the plugins page, the Calendar Pro version might not be compatible with your Events Calendar version. So if you upgraded one of the plugins, make sure the other one is updated as well. Otherwise, a lot of the features will be disabled until the compatibility issues resolve. So that is something I've seen sometimes. So that might be, hopefully that's all the issue is, but because that would be a quick fix.
Okay, I think we got through all of our questions. And I will be sending a replay of this webinar along with some resources so that you can watch it again and learn more about the Events Calendar 6.0. And we are offering a coupon that's TEC webinar off. That's $25 off of any one of our products. And that'll also be included in the email as well. And that is it. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you guys at the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.